Okay, advertisement. I decided not to make a very in-depth module on advertisement because for various reasons. First of all, it's a course in itself, depending on the platform you're going to use. The second issue is that they keep changing the way ads work all the time. So whatever I'm gonna record now is not gonna be valid in 3 months. And that's why you need to check the documentation of the platform you're gonna pick. If it's Facebook or Instagram, you need to check that. If it's Google Ads, it's that. Unfortunately, I realized after a while that it makes no sense for me to go into details because by the time you see this, they're gonna be different. So that's something you need to do separately. What is the budget you need to set aside for advertisement? Basically, whatever you can spare, because you are going to need it unless your community is so gigantic that you know that this is going to fund immediately. But if you're here watching this course, probably that's not your situation. You can expect a return on investment about of 4-5 times on big budgets. On smaller budgets, you can get it a bit higher, but then on average on big budgets, let's say that you invest 10,000 euros or dollars on advertisement, you can probably rake in 40 or 50,000 from that expense. That's my experience. That's what you can get if you work well. As I mentioned, depending on the existing community, depending on the specific game, you can also get much more than that. I remember one single advertisement that was raking in for an older campaign like 80 times what I spent on it. But that's not the rule, and it's more an exception. And you just manage to make a lucky one, and it really works. So what are your options? First of all, there's Facebook and Instagram ads. At the moment of recording, this is still the main thing, even though it has been progressively decreasing in efficiency because of privacy regulations, because of Facebook just being bad generally for society. They had to remove the way they collect some information about people. So currently, what's happening is that for the same amount of money of before, you're gonna target an audience that is less precise than previously. There's nothing we can do about it. We can just work with what we have. At the moment, it's really even hard to read the numbers that Facebook gives you back. They've always been a bit sketchy, in my opinion. They never really corresponded with what I've seen on the other side of things. And now it's even harder to read them. So basically, you are putting money in and hoping that something comes out. That's why if you're working with a bigger platform that has established communities, has pages where they can push this stuff, I would recommend it. And in this case, it would be Backerkit. They have a service called Marketing that does this for you. And Gamefound Marketing. They take a percentage of the sales they make you do through that, but they can somewhat document these sales, which is what most of the other services cannot do. So you know that for each amount you spend there, you will get this amount, more or less. It's expensive. It works at scale, but it's better than doing it yourself. I used to do it myself, but I'm not so sure anymore. I think that these bigger platforms have such targeted community that it doesn't matter if Facebook doesn't provide some data anymore, because the people you need are already in their communities and they can push the content to them directly. Google Ads is an option. I never did much of them. Like you can also advertise on pre-rolls on YouTube, for example. That's something I haven't experimented much with because I basically hate how the Google Ads platform looks. I find it very confusing. They keep changing it. It's really hard to understand if you're doing something wrong or right for what matters. So I haven't used it very much, but a lot of people do. and with good results. So that's something you can look into, but be prepared that you need to read their documentation in detail, and it's not always updated. That's something I cannot explain, but there are sometimes you will have to take some wild guesses. Reddit is another option. I've been in touch with them about advertising. They wanted to hear my opinion on how they're handling things. It's much easier to use than some of the other platforms. I also feel that it might not be as effective, but I did get some results from it. So if you can split the budget by platform, I would say put probably 70% on Facebook, Instagram, 20% on Google or YouTube, and 10% on Reddit. At the moment it might be a decent split because you can reach different kind of people there. Remember, not everybody's on Facebook, not everybody's on Instagram. Actually, people are leaving Facebook and Instagram, so you need to find them in some other ways right now. There's also, TikTok and things like that, but then you need to work with influencers and maybe have a partnership. And as I mentioned in a previous lesson, those can get expensive very quickly. So I don't know if I recommend that. It's something you can look into depending on the audience you're trying to reach. For example, if it's a very young audience, it might be that TikTok is a good way to get attention, but then you need to find the right people to work with you. As I mentioned, each one of these would warrant a separate course, and I'm not even sure I could run it. So this is something you need to look up on their documentation, or see if there are articles around that will help you set this up. Keep in mind that, as I mentioned, this stuff keeps changing. So if you find an article from 6 months ago, it might not apply at the moment. These are things that work with some caveat. As I mentioned, I would still focus on Facebook and Instagram, but I would work with Backerkit or Gamefound if you're using Gamefound instead of Kickstarter, because they will grant you the best results for this stuff. I see their advertisements all the time. It's really powerful. It comes from a source that people trust, so it works. You should keep tuning the ads according to performance, turn off those that are not performing, and spend more money on those that are performing. You will notice that usually what happens is that one or two bring in 90% of the clicks, and for some reason they resonate with people. People share them, they send their friends, they comment under it. So focus on those that work and turn off those that are not working, because then you're just wasting money on those. This is one thing I used to do. I haven't done it for the latest campaign. You can create a launch day event on Facebook or on some other platform. For example, some people actually do physical events, and then you can invite people with Eventbrite or some other service. You could do this and people could sign up, so they get an additional reminder. If it's a live event, of course, they need to come somewhere and maybe interact with you. Live events, in my opinion, are too taxing at the moment of launching, for the simple reason that day one is going to be hell. You're going to be fully focused on the campaign for multiple hours in a row. If you also have people around talking to you, that's not gonna work, in my opinion. I know that some people do it. I don't know exactly how. They probably have a bigger team, so somebody can always look at the campaign and the others can have drinks. But I wouldn't do it personally, because I need to handle almost everything myself, and I can't have people talking to me on day one. That's basically every moment you are distracted, it's possibly one less backer you're getting. One good advice for ads, and this is true for all platforms, is that you should try different combinations of headers, image, copy, if there's a description underneath. This is quite surprising, but sometimes even small changes can bring completely different results. One egregious case from one of my campaign was an image from one character of one of our RPGs, and just changing the color palette of the character brought in 10 times the clicks. I have no clue why. One was just more appealing for people than the other. All the rest was the same. So even small changes can make a big difference. If you're on a limited budget, I would say do not push videos. I don't think videos are as effective as people think, because they require a lot of time to be seen, while when you watch an image, basically you need 1 second. You can push the launch video or some video where you explain more about the game, just if you have extra budget, but don't spend money on them unless you have them. This is something I mentioned already. You can try to work with third-party pages to push the campaign for you, or you can create one. For example, you can create a tabletop RPGs highlights page, and then if you've been running it for a while, then when it's time to push your own RPG, you are going to be in a good position. But first of all, you need some following. Second, you need to kind of spend some time on the page, and it cannot be a page completely focused on your stuff. Otherwise, why people would follow that instead of your official page? This practice is a bit sketchy. It's something I've been thinking in my head for a while. I haven't done it yet. Also because I found out that most third-party pages are run by Backerkit, and that kind of gives me the impression that it's a kind of competition I can't really fight against. So I'd rather work with them than try to do the same stuff they do with 100 times less budget, One useful thing is to install, especially if you advertise on Facebook, is to install a Facebook pixel on your site and use retargeting. This used to work fine, and now it works a lot worse because of reasons we already discussed. Kickstarter at the moment and for many years has not been supporting Facebook pixels, just the Google code for analytics. So one way that you have to go around that is to use a squeeze page. What is a squeeze page? It's a blank page that you have between the moment people click on an advertisement and they get redirected to Kickstarter. What happens is that first you send them to this blank page that has the Facebook pixel. Their data is recorded, and then this page sends them to the Kickstarter page. That's pretty much the only way you have to do it with Kickstarter. It's not an elegant solution. It's not a pretty solution. It adds some seconds of loading, but it's the only way you have to track with a pixel who goes to your Kickstarter page. Don't ask me why Kickstarter is not supporting it, because it would make so much sense. Okay, other things that you should be aware. With ads, you can make very expensive mistakes. You can burn through your budget super quickly and obtain absolutely no result. So I would suggest that if this is the first time you do advertisements, you should test some things beforehand, just to get an understanding of how things work and what kind of results you can expect. Try to see how many people would click on the stuff, etc. But for example, I know that many mobile games run fake advertisements for games that do not exist yet, to see how much people would be interested in them existing. You could take this principle and apply it for your tabletop games. You will burn some budgets, but it's better to burn it in testing so you know what to do, rather than finding out when you really need to perform. As I mentioned, there's no other way to learn this stuff except by testing, even because this is not a precise science. They keep changing things in their mind, that they are improving it. I think they are making it more complicated all the time. You will have to burn cash. There's no other way. If you have to take a decision on how to divide your budget, the day 1 and 2 of the campaign and the last 2 days of the campaign are the most important. So I think the best approach here is to have a daily budget. Every day I want to spend this amount, and then for day 1 and 2 and the last 2 days you triple that amount, and if necessary you lower it in the days in between, because those 2 days are when people are excited about the campaign starting, or they're rushing to back it because that's the last chance they have, and you want to show it and make it known to as many people as possible. Of course, your ads need to change to reflect that. If it's the last 24 hours of the campaign, you would want to have an advertisement that says final hours, right? And on the other hand, if the campaign just started, you want an ads that says just launched, already funded, blah blah blah, something a little different so people understand where we are on the timeline. Yeah. You need to keep a tab on what you're spending and check your ads often. Check how they're performing, and if you set the spending budget correctly, because it's easy to make mistakes here, and if you made one and you don't check, you might end up with thousands of euros or dollars spent in ads that you didn't want to run. So that happens. So please, at least once a day, check what's going on with your ads. And the last thing, actually it's not the last thing, it's there's something else later, but one thing you need to remember is that your credit card that is connected to the ads account independently from the service will have a ceiling. Like there will be an amount over which it will not allow you to spend. So for example, if this amount is $2,000 and you're planning to do $10,000 of advertisement, how are you gonna pay for it exactly? Because you either contact the bank and ask them to raise the cap for a month. Some bank, for example, my bank allows that if you have a big expense, but you need to be in touch with your bank. Or you need to have several credit cards lined up so that when you're done with one, it can switch to the second one. Because if you don't do that, you will find out that in the middle of the night, all your ads have stopped and you cannot start again until maybe 12 hours later or 24 hours later, and you might lose sales pretty much. And one thing you can do is that you can prepare some of the campaigns in advance. Actually, I would recommend it because you won't have time to do them on day 1. Of course, as I mentioned, you need to react during the campaign to reflect the new number of stretch goals, if one reward is particularly popular, etc. So prepare a couple of things to start with, see how it goes, check every day, and then iterate on those campaigns.